My child, listen closely, not because something terrible is about to happen, and not because you should be afraid, but because you have been carrying something for too long without realizing what it is doing to your heart. You have continued moving, answering people, handling responsibilities, and telling yourself that you are fine. Yet beneath the surface, there is a weariness you have not been able to explain. You nearly ignored that weariness again. You nearly pushed through another day without asking why your soul feels so heavy. But I am drawing your attention to this moment because there is something between us that needs your honesty, something you have been avoiding, perhaps without even knowing it. Stay with me, because before you understand why you have felt distant, tired, and uncertain, you must recognize what you have slowly allowed to occupy the place where peace once lived. I know the thoughts you do not say aloud. I know the question that returns when the room becomes quiet. You have wondered why I seem silent when you need direction most. You have asked why you can pray and still feel confused, why you can believe and still wake with anxiety, why you can encourage others while privately struggling to encourage yourself. There was a time when you spoke to me freely. You brought me your fears before they became burdens. You brought me your questions before you tried to solve everything alone. You did not need perfect words, you simply came. But lately, something has changed. You still think about me, you may still pray, you may still speak words of faith, yet your heart has become crowded. Responsibilities entered, disappointments entered, the opinions of others entered, the fear of making the wrong decision entered. And little by little, without intending to walk away from me, you began carrying your life as though everything depended entirely on you. That is why I need your attention now, not to condemn you, to bring you back to what you have forgotten. You were never meant to carry every unanswered question at the same time. You were never meant to understand the entire road before taking the next faithful step. And you were never meant to measure my nearness by how quickly your circumstances changed. There is something deeper happening inside you. You have been asking me to change what is around you, while I have been trying to show you what the pressure around you has revealed within you. Listen carefully. The burden is not only that you have been waiting. The deeper burden is that you have begun believing your waiting means you have been forgotten. You watched other people move forward. Doors opened for them. Prayers seemed to be answered for them. They celebrated things you have quietly asked me for. And although you tried to be happy for them, something inside you whispered, "What about me?" I heard that question. I was not offended by it. I saw the moment you compared your life to someone else's and felt ashamed afterward. I saw you close the screen, put down the phone, and sit with the painful thought that perhaps you had fallen behind. But you are measuring your journey with the wrong clock. Consider David. He was anointed long before he sat on the throne. Between the promise and its fulfillment came years he could not have chosen for himself. Hidden places, danger, waiting, questions. The delay did not mean the promise had disappeared. The hidden years were forming the person who would eventually carry the responsibility. And this is what you need to understand about your own season. Not every quiet chapter is an empty chapter. There are roots growing where you cannot see them. Think of a seed beneath the soil. From above, nothing appears to be happening. The ground looks unchanged. There is no visible evidence of life. But beneath the surface, the seed is opening. Roots are reaching downward before anything rises upward. If you judge the seed too early, you would call the darkness a grave. But the darkness is also where growth begins. My child, some of what you have called abandonment has actually been formation. Some of what you have called silence has been an invitation to listen differently. Some of what you have called delay has protected you from entering places before your heart was ready to remain steady there. But there is another reason I have drawn you close today. You have become tired from trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. You replay conversations because you wish you could change what was said. You imagine future problems because you believe preparing for every possible pain will keep you safe. You examine every closed door, wondering whether you prayed incorrectly, waited too long, trusted the wrong person, or missed the moment when everything could have changed. And the more you search for certainty, the less peace you feel. Do you see what fear has been doing? Fear has convinced you that if you stop worrying, everything will fall apart. But worry has never been the same as wisdom. Control has never been the same as faithfulness. And exhaustion is not proof that you are carrying your responsibilities well. I am asking you to release something. Not your responsibilities, not your dreams, not the people you love. I am asking you to release your demand to know how everything will turn out before you trust me again. Abraham was called to go without being shown every mile of the journey in advance. Faith did not give him a complete map. Faith required him to move while depending on the one who could see beyond the horizon. You keep asking for the whole map. I am asking for your next step. And perhaps that is why you have felt stuck. You thought you needed more information. You thought you needed another sign. You thought you needed to feel completely confident before moving forward. But sometimes the next faithful step is quiet. It is returning to prayer when you feel nothing. It is forgiving someone even while the wound is still tender. It is resting without feeling guilty. It is admitting that you are tired. It is saying, God, I do not understand this season, but I refuse to let confusion become the voice that leads me. If that is the prayer your heart needs today, you can write, I trust you with my next step in the comments, because I want you to notice something. The greatest danger in this season is not that you will lose what you have been waiting for. The greater danger is that disappointment will change the way you see me. Pain can make the heart suspicious. Delay can make love feel distant. Silence can make you question whether your prayers ever reached heaven. And when those thoughts remain hidden long enough, you can continue believing in me while slowly becoming afraid to trust me. That is the wound I am bringing into the light. You have protected yourself from disappointment by expecting less. You stopped praying boldly about certain things because hoping again felt too risky. You told yourself you had surrendered, but part of you had simply become numb. And I am not drawing you close to shame you for that. I am drawing you close because numbness was never meant to become your permanent shelter. There is a difference between surrendering a desire and burying your heart. There is a difference between accepting my timing and pretending you no longer care. And before you can understand what I am preparing you to see, you must become honest about the place inside you that has been quietly saying, I do not know if I can trust again. Because that hidden sentence is connected to more than your current struggle. It is connected to the reason you have felt restless even when nothing was visibly wrong. And what I need to show you next is why the very place you have been trying hardest to protect may be the place where healing must begin. You have mistaken control for faithfulness. You believed that if you thought about the problem long enough, prepared for every possible outcome, watched every sign, studied every silence, and protected yourself from every disappointment, you could prevent yourself from being hurt again. But control has not made you peaceful. It has made you watchful. It has made you tired. It has made you suspicious of quiet seasons because you are always waiting for something to go wrong. You pray, but then you immediately begin planning how to rescue yourself if the answer does not come the way you hoped. You surrender the situation to me in the morning, then take it back into your hands before the day is over. You ask for guidance, but you are afraid to move unless I show you the entire road. My child, I understand why. There was a time when you trusted someone and they disappointed you. There was a season when you believed everything would work out, but instead, you watched something precious fall apart. There was a moment when you felt unprepared for what happened, and somewhere inside you, a decision was made. You would never be caught that vulnerable again. So you began carrying tomorrow before tomorrow arrived. You started reading meaning into delays. You started treating uncertainty like danger. You started believing that if you could anticipate every problem, you could protect your heart. But fear can wear the clothing of wisdom, and that is why you did not recognize it. Listen carefully. I am not asking you to become careless. I am asking you to stop believing that your safety depends entirely on your ability to predict what comes next. You cannot rest while trying to control everything. You cannot hear my guidance clearly while demanding that I explain every detail before you trust me. And you cannot receive peace with hands that refuse to release what they were never strong enough to hold. Remember Abraham. He received a promise, but the fulfillment did not arrive according to the schedule he expected. Time passed. Questions grew. The distance between the promise and the visible evidence became difficult to understand. And in that waiting, human impatience tried to accomplish what only trust could receive in the right season. This is where I want you to examine your heart. Have you been forcing something because you are afraid that waiting means losing? Have you been chasing an answer because silence makes you uncomfortable? Have you been holding on to a relationship, an expectation, an identity, or a plan because you cannot imagine who you would be without it? Sometimes the greatest exhaustion does not come from carrying too much work. It comes from trying to keep alive what I am asking you to release. And this is the deeper reason I called you close. There is something in your life that has occupied more of your heart than it should. Perhaps it is the need to be understood. Perhaps it is the approval of someone who keeps withholding it. Perhaps it is an old version of your future that no longer fits the person you are becoming. Perhaps it is regret over a decision you cannot change. Or perhaps it is the belief that your life can only become meaningful when one specific prayer is answered exactly as you imagined. Hear me. Your peace cannot remain dependent on one outcome. Your identity cannot remain trapped inside one person's opinion. Your hope cannot be tied to one closed door. And your relationship with me cannot become a negotiation where you trust me only when life makes sense. I know that is difficult to hear because you have prayed sincerely. You have waited longer than you expected. You have watched other people receive what you asked for. You have tried to celebrate with them while quietly wondering whether your own name had been forgotten. I saw that too. I saw you congratulate someone while fighting tears later. I saw you smile at an announcement that reminded you of your own waiting. I saw you scroll past lives that seemed to be moving faster than yours, and I heard the question you were afraid to pray. What is wrong with me? Nothing about your waiting makes you less valuable. Nothing about another person's season makes your life less meaningful. But comparison has been teaching you to measure my faithfulness by someone else's timeline, and that measurement will always leave you restless. Look at Hannah. Year after year, she carried a grief that others did not fully understand. Her pain became sharper because someone else kept provoking the wound. She could not simply forget what she longed for. She could not force herself to stop caring, but there came a moment when she poured out what she had been carrying. She did not hide her anguish behind polished language. She brought her bitterness, her longing, and her tears into my presence. And something changed before her circumstances changed. She left differently. The answer had not yet appeared. The visible situation had not yet transformed, but the burden was no longer sitting in her heart in the same way. This is what surrender can do. It does not always change the landscape immediately. Sometimes it changes the person standing in the landscape. And that is what I am inviting you into. You have been waiting for external evidence before allowing yourself to rest. But I am teaching you a deeper peace, a peace that does not need every question answered before it can breathe, a peace that does not collapse every time the phone stays silent, a peace that does not disappear when another door closes, a peace that can say, I do not understand this season, but I refuse to believe I am abandoned inside it. My child, you have spent enough nights rehearsing futures that never happened. You have suffered through conversations that existed only in your imagination. You have prepared yourself for rejection before anyone rejected you. You have mourned losses that had not occurred. And while your body remained in the present, your mind traveled into 100 possible tomorrows. Come back. Come back to the grace available for today. You do not need strength for next month tonight. You do not need the answer to every question before you sleep. You do not need to know who will stay forever. You do not need to know how every problem will be solved. You need to learn that my presence is not waiting for you at the end of certainty. I am with you here, in the unfinished place, in the unanswered prayer, in the decision you are still trying to understand, in the season where you have more questions than explanations. And there is a reason I am asking you to release control now, because something inside you has begun to harden. Not because you stopped believing in me, but because disappointment taught you to protect yourself from hope. You stopped expecting good things because expectation felt dangerous. You told yourself you were simply being realistic. But beneath that realism was a wounded heart saying, I cannot survive another disappointment. I heard that. I know why you became cautious, but you cannot heal by building walls around every tender place. A locked room may keep others from entering, but it also keeps light from reaching what is hidden inside. And there is a door in your heart that you have kept closed for too long. Behind it is grief. Behind it is anger you felt guilty for feeling. Behind it is the question you thought a faithful person should never ask. Behind it is the part of you that still wonders why I did not intervene sooner. Open that door to me. You do not have to open it to everyone. Not everyone has earned access to your deepest wounds. But do not keep me outside the room. Peter knew what it meant to carry failure. He had spoken confidently about his loyalty. Then fear exposed a weakness he did not know was inside him. He denied Jesus, and afterward, he wept. Imagine the shame, the replaying of the moment, the thought that one failure had destroyed everything he had been called to become. But failure was not the final word over Peter's life. Restoration met him, not because the failure was meaningless, not because nothing had happened, but because grace was greater than the moment he wanted to erase. And you need to hear this. You are not only carrying fear about your future, you are still punishing yourself for something in your past. You revisit the mistake. You imagine how life would look if you had chosen differently. You wonder whether the delay you are experiencing is punishment. You question whether you disqualified yourself from the good things you once hoped for. But regret cannot become your permanent identity. Learn from what happened. Make amends where you can. Turn away from what needs to change. Receive forgiveness. Then stop returning to the prison after the door has been opened. You cannot walk forward while constantly putting yourself on trial for what grace has already invited you to surrender. And now we are approaching the truth I needed you to hear when I called you close. The greatest danger in this season is not that you will lose everything. It is not that your future will collapse. It is not that every unanswered prayer will remain unanswered. The deeper danger is that pain will convince you to become someone who no longer knows how to receive love, trust guidance, recognize mercy, or hope without fear. I care too much about your heart to let you quietly disappear behind the walls you built to survive. That is why this moment matters. Because I'm not only asking you to release what happened, I am asking you to release the version of yourself that believes you must remain wounded in order to remain protected. And what comes after that release is the deepest part of this message, because the peace you have been asking for will not begin when every problem disappears. It will begin when you finally understand why I have been drawing you closer through the very season you thought was pushing you away.